All right, so it looks like we are apparently streaming live right now. So hello, hello, hello out there, all of our listeners on
Hello,
Facebook.
hello.
And I've got with me tonight Neil Shelton and Randy Davis, and hopefully Randy's mic is working. And we actually have on the phone lines right now Mr. John Schneider. John, how are you doing this evening?
Oh my gosh, really? I'm doing fine.
Awesome.
I'm doing fine. Yep. It's a beautiful, insanely cold night. Of course, somebody on here is from Alaska, so they look at what we're looking at now as a balmy afternoon. But we in Louisiana, when it's 34, 35 degrees, it's pretty unusual, and that's what we're looking at right now.
Wow.
Yeah, ice on the swamp.
Exactly. So I definitely want to thank you for coming on and spending your time with us. I know it's very, very precious. You're basically all over the place. Just recently been on Dancing with the Stars of all things there. So congratulations
Yeah,
on your
buddy.
appearance there. It was just fantastic.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it. So one of the major things that we kind of really want to get into was some of the facts that you have gone through with the family court system. And I want to give you just a little bit of time to kind of elaborate about the family court system and what you've been through and what you felt going through that process.
My gosh. Well, the family court system, I've only been through it in one state. Well, two states. One is California, and the other is confusion. So I am still going through family court in the state of California, where it's fascinating to me because in California they do the property settlement first before they do the divorce.
Right.
And I have now been, what is today, the 14th? 14th? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The 11th of November was the 4th year anniversary of my wife filing for divorce. Wow. And the one word that has never been mentioned in all 4 years and 2 days of my family court experience in the state of California is divorce. So my experience is that it is now again, I have to preface this by saying it is California. And most states, if people are alive and breathing and paying any attention, realize that California is a little odd.
Right.
Their practices are, it's a strange state. So, when we started this journey, when Ellie filed for divorce in 2016, 14. When is it? Yeah, 2014. She and I had really one piece of property that had any value to. Actually, one thing that we owned, because there's a big myth out there that people think that their house is an asset of theirs. Well, if you have a mortgage, the house is not your asset; it's the bank's asset, and you are renting it from them until you pay it off.
That's correct.
And you find that out really when someone files for divorce. What's supposed to happen, at least my understanding, is there's a pin put in your finances, both good and bad. So your assets and your debts are frozen, and then they are shared. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I had been told for years. And I've been divorced before, and it was in California, and it took about a month, and it was two adults who realized that they did not want to be married anymore. I was in my 20s. We both had careers. We both cared for one another, but we said, this isn't working. We need to stop. And we did. And it took about a month, and that was it. This one's taken 4 years, and California seems to believe, regardless of tax returns and proof to the opposite, that I must have John Lafitte's John Lafitte's gold bullion sitting in a drawer somewhere because they continue to treat me as if I'm a criminal.
Right.
And they put me in jail. I've been in jail, and chances are I'll go back.
Right.
Because of the state of California. And I'm not sitting here saying this is because of Ellie. Although Ellie could stop it at any time. I can't call her my wife because it would taste bad, but she's not legally my ex-wife yet, or not. So what I call her is my soon, please God, future ex-wife.
Right. Right. Exactly.
She could stop it at any time, but she has chosen not to.
Right.
And the system.
And I don't know why. That's why I say I'm in a state of confusion. I mean, lawyers are involved, and you know, when you have anyone involved that gets paid by the hour, and in lawyer lingo, by the hour means if I pick up the phone, if I do anything on your behalf, I'm going to charge you an hour for it.
Exactly.
Even if it takes 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly right. And I'm glad that you have a really healthy mindset, because you're not blaming your ex. You're really blaming the family court system and how it's set up. And that's where the evolution really is, to not blame your ex, but to blame the system for what it's doing and allowing your ex to do. But I want to get in over here to Neil, because I know he's got some great questions for you as well.
Well, yeah,
okay.
I'm the one in Alaska here from Mayberry. That's kind of a big switch. But first of all, you're a legend, but you were a childhood idol of mine. And I never realized, you're only 10 years older than me. But your role as Bo Duke, man, I grew up just eating that up. And what a lot of people don't realize.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, it's legendary, man. It's legendary. But anyway, what a lot of people don't realize is, you have worked your entire life. If you look on IMDb at this man's credits, you're talking about a total of like 150 plus credits. And then with this new music, the Odyssey, which is going to set a world record. I mean, you have worked your entire life, but guess what? We never saw John Schneider in the Enquirer. We never had any taboo. We never heard any bad trash, and then here comes family law, and that's just how it works and how it happens. But going into jail, you standing there saying, lock me up, and then going into jail, that had to be a wake-up call. How was that?
Mm-hmm. Well, jail was actually fine. Mm-hmm. I found that it's like if a police officer pulls you over on the side of the road, chances are you're speeding. If a police officer says, stop where you are, and you have a television in your hands, chances are it's not yours. I mean, police officers are not in the business of speculation. They are in the business of upholding the law. They're in the business of keeping the peace. And there really isn't anything up for negotiation. But by the time you are turning over your belt and your shoelaces to someone, you aren't saying, hey, I'm innocent. You have been found. Now, there's a huge difference between being guilty and being found guilty. Mm-hmm. I now believe there are many, many people who have been found guilty, especially in family court, who are not guilty at all. Yeah. However, if you find yourself in that position, and I mean, I'm not pretending that it's not different because I'm a celebrity. It is entirely different because I'm a celebrity, because I am a nuisance in jail. If people are fans of mine, then I can cause an uproar in a cell block. If people are not fans of mine, I can cause an uproar in a cell block. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just by nature of being a celebrity, there's a different designation for me. And what that means is I have to have an officer, in this case a sheriff, assigned to me to bring me through the process. And everywhere I am, I'm alone except for him.
Mhm. Right.
And what that means is, if it's a non-celebrity, it's called the general population. There's 10 or 11 people in a small room. In my case, it's one person in a small room.
That's even worse.
And what that boils down to is, because there've been quite a few people who've made light of this. Well, John Schneider was supposed to be in jail for 3 days. He was in there for 3 hours. Well, no, I was there for 9 hours. And I was fingerprinted and mug-shotted, and they took my belt and they took my shoelaces, and they were very, very civil to me, just as they were to everyone else in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was released because I take up the room of 10 people, and we're in Los Angeles, where there's a lot of people who need to be incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is unable, and I'm going to elaborate on that in a minute, I continue to say I am unable to pay this exorbitant amount of really what, in my mind, is extortion,
Right.
That the state of California Family Court has condoned, almost $19,000 a month.
Yeah.
I was put in debtor's prison. Make no mistake about it. I was put in debtor's prison, which is supposed to be illegal.
Mm-hmm. It was outlawed over 100 years ago. Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a judge decided that since people lie on their taxes all the time, this is a quote from him, that my tax returns from 2016, the worst fiscal year of my life, because we had 2 floods in not to elaborate, but Alicia and I have a film studio in Louisiana that was flooded and destroyed twice in 2016. So I lost everything I had in March, then went into debt to restore the place, and then lost it again in August. And I'll be paying that off for the next 20 years. So when I say there's no money, there's no money. Yes, I work, but I have insurmountable debt.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie and I have insurmountable debt that I'm also paying off, because for some reason in the state of California, the breadwinner or the working spouse is responsible for both of their collective community debt, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. If you are going to put a pin in our finances, then if we have $10 to our name, then we each get $5. And if we have $10 of debt to our name, then we each owe $5. So guess what? We have nothing left at the end of it. Not for you and not for me. And that's how it should be. And that's how it is explained to us as civilians. But lawyers will work around that. And one more thing before, I'm living this. So one more thing before you jump in. We must never, ever forget that the one thing that all judges have in common is that they were at one time lawyers.
Oh, amen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
So
I agree.
remember that when
Mm-hmm.
you are pleading to your honor, is that your honor, the only difference between your honor and those overbilling, life-ruining oppositional lawyers is a long black robe, and usually an appointment, not a victory. It's an appointment, which means some debt from some other lawyer was paid to the man or woman who's now wearing a long black robe, who has your future in their hands. Mm-hmm. Some debt was paid to them, and they did not earn it by virtue of being voted into office by the people.
Yep, that's
now,
absolutely
your
correct.
turn.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, you're absolutely 100% correct. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in Randy Davis also here for the next question that we've got for you.
Okay, brother, thank you. And Mr. Schneider, thank you for being on here with us. as Neil said, I'm a huge fan as well, and the things you've done are just outstanding. I mean, there's so many things people don't know. They kind of pigeonhole you into Dukes of Hazzard and Bo Duke, but there's so many other things that you've done that's just amazing. Having said that, here's my question, and we've had, and the three of us here that are talking with you, we had a friend of ours. His name was Dominic Tomasella. The pressure and the stress from this nightmare of family court, like which Neil has been in jail, I've been in jail. I have no record. Had never had any record. They just put me in there.
Right.
There wasn't even an order. And I thought, this can't happen. I literally had to do a writ of habeas corpus to get out because there was no record. And then they let me out, but it was 5 months in jail. I didn't know what to do. But here's the question.
Wow.
We've had more than one person who has taken their lives, or they've turned to things that we wouldn't do, but they've turned to drugs, they've turned to foolishness in order to kind of take their mind away from the pressures, because it's so extreme. And you know, if you've been in it since 2014, how the pressures will mount. And you've obviously got a good partner beside you, but there's some people out there that don't have that security net or support. And then they believe that, well, this doesn't happen to the wealthy or the well-connected. So they can't understand how this would even happen to a person of your fame. But it does, and it doesn't discriminate whether you have money or not. You can't buy your way out of this. It's like you have to have a friend in a black robe, or you just have to grin and bear it, and some can't handle it. So my question is, what in John Schneider's life, when you were growing up, where is it you're drawing your strength from? And what would you tell the people to draw their strength from? They're going through this, because you sound confident, competent, and you're having fun. Where's the button? I've seen your videos. You're enjoying life, and I keep telling them, you got to rev it up. You got to learn to rev it up. You got to enjoy your life. So what is it about you that you learned as a kid or in your formative years that you carry on now that makes you be able to handle it?
Well, one of the most important things, I'm 58 years old, and one of the things I've known my whole life is that people die. Mm-hmm. And people die who are 100, and people die who are 50, and people die who are 5 and 3, and people who are die the moment they're born. People die. Mm-hmm. And life is too short, because one of these days you are going to be one of those people who die. Mm-hmm. And the one thing, unless you take your own life, which I do not recommend, unless you take your own life, you do not know when that moment is going to happen. So in my cavalier way, we all will at one point have had our last grilled cheese sandwich. We just don't know that. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the only thing we have control of is our demeanor when that inevitable thing happens. So since you don't know when it's going to happen, you have one option. You have to choose joy.
That's right.
You have to choose joy in everything that you do, every moment you do it. Now, sometimes I get aggravated. I'm from New York. I get pissed off. I tell you what, this thing has made me livid. I am occasionally so angry I could chew sheet metal and spit out carpet tacks, as my dad would say.
Yeah.
But I am not going to do that very often. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. You cannot let something like this. I saw a paternity suit destroy my stepfather. He was into it every moment of every day. When he was not working, he was sitting on the floor, drinking beer and going over papers, because he swore that he was not the father of these two children. Mm-hmm. And he was going to prove it come hell or high water. And he died trying to prove it, a drunk, lonely, terrible, nasty old man. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen to me. Because guess what? Here's something that that I don't think people realize is that at the end of the day, and I didn't realize this when this first started, or I would have approached it differently. At the end of the day, when a judge takes a gavel and hits it on a piece of wood and says, "You, Mr. So-and-so, or you, Mrs. So, whoever, person A owes person B $10, so be it." Then you have a bill. And you can do with that bill whatever you choose to do. You can be diligent, and I had been in the past, before I was truly abused by the family court system, I had been in the past someone who would say, "Okay, I have a bill, so I'm going to do everything I can in my power to pay it." Well, I've already given everything I have to not only my soon-to-be, please God, future ex-wife, but her attorneys and my attorneys who have sued me. I've had 3 attorneys. The first one sued me. The second one is threatening to sue me. And I borrowed $60,000 to pay the third one. And what I got for my $60,000 was 15 days in jail.
Mm.
So they're not high on my list. They're not high on my list. At least not on my good list, Santa.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the day, what you have is a bill. And you can, and they are, and I've heard the judge say this, they can pursue payment on that bill with whatever is legally available to them. Mm-hmm. So that means you cannot pay it. Mm-hmm. They can't eat you, and they can't put you in jail.
Right.
They can call you, they can pester you,
mm-hmm.
they can ruin your credit, which, by the way, this is for another podcast. An excellent credit score. All an excellent credit score does for you is enable you to buy that which you cannot afford.
That's correct.
And they want you to have an excellent credit score so that, I speak from experience, so you can borrow $1 million,
mm-hmm.
pay $1.25 million over the course of 10 years, and still not have touched the principal on the house you thought you bought.
Right. Yeah.
And then they will take that house.
mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying, and I'm not saying this cavalierly, what I'm saying to those folks out there, what they're thinking is that this divorce is going to destroy their life. Guess what? It's not.
Mm-hmm.
So if I really truly knew 4 years ago what I know now, and I had heard this, but I didn't actually believe it, what I would have done is I would have said, "Ellie, you got it. Whatever you want, I'll sign the paper." I would have signed the paper. I would have gotten a decree of divorce. And guess what Ellie would have had? A piece of paper.
Right.
And at that point, I would have done, because at that point, I had not been sent to jail. I had not been called terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
My soon-to-be, please God, future ex-wife had not been poisoned by her money-grabbing lawyers. And I would have given her something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I completely agree with that.
Now, what's happened in these 4 years is basically I've given my lawyers and her lawyers everything, and she gets nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
well,
absolutely.
she has remember I told you at the beginning of this, I told you we had one asset, we had one piece of property. I signed that over to her. So she has that. She can do whatever she wants with that. And it's in the state of California, and it's worth close to $750,000.
Mm-hmm.
So she has that. I have debt.
Okay.
And they're trying to I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, guys. I'm sorry.
No, that's definitely fine.
They said, I want an opinion from all 3 of you. If your opposing lawyers say in a court of law, Your Honor, we are doing this. I accused her lawyers of, because I have no representation anymore. I said, look, Your Honor, the only people who get anything out of extending this whole process are Ellie's lawyers because they charge by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in their best interest to stretch this out and to elongate this process as long as they can. Well, they stood up and they ranted and raved and said, we take offense to that, Your Honor, because we are doing this for Mrs. Schneider because Mr. Schneider is such a despicable human being. We are doing this pro bono for Mrs. Schneider.
Okay. Now, if you Google the silver bullet technique.
They said that, and now they're trying to charge me $300,000 for their services for her. Plus, they've charged her over $100,000. So shouldn't they give her the money back and leave me alone if they're doing this pro bono? Or does pro bono mean something else?
You would think.
Yeah.
But now if you're talking about false accusations and saying you're this horrible thing, if you Google the silver bullet technique, which that's what they use, they use that to get a restraining order or to gain leverage or to make you look bad in court. So if you Google that, my little redneck butt pops up in a Fox News interview, and that explains the whole silver bullet technique. And you're exactly right.
What is that?
That is using false allegations, coming in there saying, oh, he's a horrible person, he's a bad person, just so they can well, in my case, I was in jail. They locked me in jail for a year, called me the Boston Bombers, locked me in jail for a year in the same cell with the guy who murdered my best friend for me to lose everything in my divorce. And before that, they used 5 more. I've been arrested 84 times. Before that, they had me arrested 5 more times for doing stuff that I proved that I never did. But all that's building up false accusations. So, but that my opinion is they textbooked you pretty much. They gaslight you. That is getting you in there saying horrible things about you to force a reaction, hoping you're going to be unfavorable reaction. That's gaslighting. And then the silver bullet technique, like you said, you can Google it, and my Fox News video pops up. But the silver bullet technique is using false accusations, whether they go as far as being criminal or not, just to make you look bad, so they can immediately gain leverage in the divorce. They get the house automatically. They get all the money. I got nothing out of mine. I got no equitable distribution. I got nothing. I got a year in jail. And by the way, you're talking about appointed judges and all this. The lawyer who did that to me is the Speaker pro tempore for the state of North Carolina, for the House for the state of North Carolina. The DA who held me in jail for a year is the son of the Speaker of the Senate for the state of North Carolina. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah.
Well, do you get the impression that all they're doing? I mean, I firmly believe that my wife's attorneys, they know I can't pay this, or they know I won't. I mean, number one, I can't.
Right.
But so what they're doing is they are billing me continuously for 4 years for a bill that they know they cannot collect on.
Yeah.
So that after a extended period of time, they can then sell this uncollectible debt, and they know it's uncollectible. They can sell it to a third party. They can write it off on their taxes as a bad debt of, call it $300,000. Now we've got somebody else who's tracking me down, trying to get it, and they bought the debt for pennies on the dollar. Eventually, they'll realize they'll give up, and they'll write off the same debt. Now, maybe they paid $150,000, so they'll write off $150,000. So now we've got $450,000 in legal debt that has been written off by lawyers.
Right.
That they knew that this was an uncollectible debt. So is this not fraud? Is this not tax fraud?
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, it generally is.
And then why the hell aren't these bastards going to jail for tax fraud?
That there's not enough of us.
Everybody's in the robe.
Yeah. There's not enough of us coming around saying, hey, look, you're committing fraud, and all coming together. That's the number one thing. And
well, let's gather. I mean, I'm all for gathering together, because remember the judge himself when I produced a CPA who prepared my 2016 tax returns, it was the third time I had to fly her in from Florida, because the first two times it ran over and she didn't get to testify. That was intentional because my wife's lawyers knew she was outside and they knew what she had. So when she did get to testify, which is when I naively thought this whole thing would be over, because obviously if I had tax returns that showed clearly I lost $311,000 in 2016, that everyone would say, well, if you lost $311,000 in 2016, there's certainly no way you can pay your soon-to-be, please God, future ex-wife nearly $19,000 a month in temporary court-ordered spousal support.
Correct.
So I thought it was going to go away. And gentlemen, you know what her lawyers said? They said to the CPA, they said, "Did you prepare these tax returns?" And she said, "Yes." Said, "And where did you get the information you prepared the tax returns with?" And she said, "From Mr. Schneider's accountant." So this is them again. "So you did not actually compile the information you prepared the tax returns from?" And she said, "No." Well, first of all, no one who does tax returns actually does that. Someone else always does that. So she said, "Your Honor, it's hearsay." She has no way to authenticate the receipts and information she received. And you know what this bastard said? He said, "Well, people lie on their taxes all the time. Sustained."
Oh, good Lord.
So
Yeah.
that to me says that exactly. So at that point, I became someone who was, rather than someone who was willing yet unable, which is fine, I became, in the eyes of the court, someone who was able yet unwilling.
Right.
So I would offer to the four of us that obviously this judge, since he believes people lie on their taxes all the time, must lie on his taxes all the time, and needs to be we need to look into that.
That's right.
Yeah, we definitely
So that's
do.
why I went to jail, because the court decided I chose not to pay $19,000. It's actually $19,000 a month in temporary spousal support for 6 counts, and then he gave me 220 hours of community service in Los Angeles County, knowing that I live in Livingston Parish, Louisiana, almost 2,000 miles away from Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where he gets the jurisdiction to do something like that. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, hey, I'm glad you mentioned that. If you are getting divorced and you do not live in the state where whoever filed. Okay, my big mistake. Here's a flashlight shining on something for everybody listening. My big mistake, when Ellie sent me the papers, and we'd had a bad marriage for nearly a decade. So it was like one of us was going to do it. One of us was going to pull the trigger. So it wasn't a sad day. It was like, okay, well, somebody finally manned up, and it was her. She manned up and put an end to it. But the papers were from the state of California. I was in Louisiana. I could have said, "Ellie, I can't agree with you more. We need to get divorced, but we need to do it in Louisiana."
Right.
Had I done that before I signed the papers, this would have been over in a month.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
But I did not. I gave up, or I granted jurisdiction to the state of California,
right,
which was a horrific mistake.
Yeah, diversity jurisdiction is what that's called when you're dealing with when the parties reside between two different states. It's called diversity jurisdiction for anybody who wants to look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
is there any way for me to get that back that you know of? Is there any possibility of, since I'm a Louisiana resident and it's been longer than the Civil War? It's been 4 years.
You know, the top guy in California that I know, I don't know the California deal, but there's that Sean McMullen. He's
Sean McMillan.
McMillan. This man, he won like a $9 million lawsuit against the state of California.
Right. The right to lie case.
Well, I need somebody, because I have no lawyer.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And obviously the last one I had got me 15 days in jail. So I mean, I don't need that lawyer.
Yeah, we will
But
definitely try and get in contact with Sean McMillan for you and get you that number for sure.
Yeah.
He would
Well,
probably,
and there's no what I need, guys. I need somebody who says, you know, I grew up watching this guy, and this sucks.
Yeah.
And this has got to stop. I see what's going on, because there is no money. I mean, like I told you, we were flooded. My piece of property, the studio, is worth about $220,000, and I owe over $1 million on it.
wow.
So that's my financial picture. Even though, he's dancing on Dancing with the Stars. Well, so what?
Right. Right.
Yes, I'm famous, but I have a mountain of debt, as most famous people do.
Yes.
The minute you said to lock me up, though, to that judge, what you didn't realize, or probably still haven't to a certain extent, is you gained 23 million new followers. There's a study done by High Point University. It's basically 23 million people going through what we're going through. And one page that I'm on just alone, I'm an editor on it. Every post we get 2 million hits. It has a reach of 10 million people. So this is an epidemic. And, these stories, my story, Randy's story, if you will watch, go on CNN Go and watch Lisa Ling this past weekend. She did on her This Is Life with Lisa Ling. It was about our situations. Of course, it involves kids like me. I haven't been allowed to see my kids in 8 years. But these stories are becoming more and more mainstream, and the stories that are out there and documented and vetted and true, if we knew somebody with a big studio setting somewhere, some stories that need to be told, and it could be a way of paying off some of that debt, and putting some medicine in the can.
Well, hang on. Let me back you up 1 second. I'm gonna say this. I do not negotiate with terrorists.
Oh, hey.
I will not.
Oh my
I
God,
will
that's
not,
my favorite
under
line.
any circumstances.
Is that
I will
not?
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you
Excuse
brought
me.
up kids, Neil. That's a big thing, because I know, John, that you have been alienated from your kids, and I think that it's just an awful situation. And I want to definitely give you an opportunity, just in case for some odd reason, maybe down the line, they'll watch this video. If there is anything that you could say to your children right now, what would it be?
Well, here's the thing. My kids, my youngest one is 23. Okay, so they're adults.
Right.
They're adults. And I had a piece on Dancing with the Stars week before last, and since then I have actually spoken with my son.
That's great.
So I'm and we are working it out.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
So I don't, for whatever reason, and I believe we're going to work this out. My kids decided that they didn't want to have anything to do with me. Now, they may have also decided, I'm not privy to this information. Someone brought up to me, they may not be having anything to do with Ellie either.
Right.
And that had not occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that mom and dad are embarrassing and they don't want to have anything to do with either one of us. That could very well be. I don't know.
Right.
But I would delight in talking with my children, and if whatever it is that they think I've done wrong, if I've done it wrong, I will admit it.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I will defend it.
Right.
So.
Well, I think that's a
for them
fantastic thing, because what basically you're telling everyone out here is what we've been telling them for a while now, is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a way to reunite with your children, that like gets bigger and stronger the more that you fight, the more that you do the right thing.
Right. And you know, if there may be children listening to this, my children, somebody else's children may be listening to this. A very wise person once said, there are three sides to every story: your side, my side, and the truth. So there is every possibility that your parent who you are estranged from has information or a perspective that you have not considered. So it would behoove you to swallow your pride and call your mom or call your dad and say, look, I don't like you. I don't love you. I don't want you in my life. However, I need more information so that I can sleep better.
Yes.
And from there starts a conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think that's important. I want to go back to something though.
Sure.
I want to go back because there are people that say to me, well, why don't we start a GoFundMe campaign, and we'll raise money to pay off your ex-wife, or we'll raise money to pay off your lawyers. Well, I'm going back once again and saying I do not, under any circumstances, negotiate with terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
What they are doing is they are trying to extort money from me that I don't have. But if I did have it, and I'm telling this, if Ellie's lawyers are listening, if I had the money they think I have, number one, I wouldn't have gone to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I'd have a lawyer of my own. And number three, if I owe them $400,000, I would gladly spend $500,000 to bury them.
Round it up. That's
I
round
agree
up.
with you.
Hey, look, guys,
because what they are doing is unfair.
Mm-hmm.
What they are doing is unfair, it's unjust, and it's not right.
Right. Yeah, Randy, what was that? I'm sorry?
Here's the whole thing, and Mr. Schneider, you got to write this name down. I'm going to do a little name drop, and it's a friend of mine who's an attorney. She's not in Louisiana, but she's watching tonight. She understands everything that's going on, and she loves you. She's followed you forever. Her name is Karen Petita Materna.
Where is she?
Where is she, though? She's in Mobile, Alabama. But
the thing is, my understanding is that if they're not in California, right. They have my wife's lawyer there, but yeah. I have a dear friend here. And by the way, I'm not saying bad things against all lawyers, not even all family lawyers. There are some wonderful people. I just have not found them. I have some great friends in New Orleans, and my wife's lawyers basically told my friend, if you call me again, I'll have you reported to the bar, and I'll have your license.
Oh, God.
Because you're not a California lawyer. I mean, it's like I said, California is an odd place. I would love to talk with this woman, but if she's not in California, she can't help.
Well, I don't think that she could actually do the case, but she could at least answer your questions as to jurisdiction. I can tell you with DSS cases, which are family court, same thing. There is, if the case is started wrong, if there was no original jurisdiction, then every order in the case is void ab initio. That means from the beginning, every order is void. And I've seen it here in North Carolina. Neil and I mean, it's odd. I didn't grow up to do this. I grew up on a farm. I don't want to look up legal statutes and read Court of Appeals briefs all the time. It's sickening, but you find yourself as that's the only way you can do it. Because like yourself, I didn't have $1 million to spend on attorneys. I had to win mine on my own, and I did. But it took everything I had, and it consumed me. And then it was over, and now that it's over, I still can't let it go. I want to help others to understand, at least help them to understand what's going on with them. But that thing about void initio, it is very powerful, and jurisdiction is a hard thing. It is a very hard thing, and I know she could at least point you in the right
All right.
direction.
Well, give me her name again.
Yeah, it's Karen Petit, P-E-T-I-T-T, Materna, M-A-T-E-R-N-A. And she's on Facebook. She's easy to find. And if nothing, she's watching right now, so I'm pretty sure
cool.
I'll just start to reach out, and we'll get you guys the way to share information or whatever.
Exactly. We'll definitely.
Well, actually, you folks have you have Jen, so you can get to me. I would love.
Yes.
If there's some way that somebody can say, hey, the foundation on which all of this rests, which is basically jurisdiction, is flawed.
Yes.
Then amen, brother. I would love to put that turd in their picnic basket.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, and I know that we're kind of getting we're even over time, so I know Jen's going to shoot me for that, but we want to definitely thank you. Yeah, we definitely want to thank you for coming on and spending your time, and I know you're going for a Guinness Book World Records of 62 songs in the Odyssey. Is that correct?
Actually, we now have 71.
71. Wow. 71.
We have 71 songs. Because we recorded a 10 song Christmas. It's actually not a CD at this point. We're out of time for a CD. So it's a 10 song Christmas download, and that will put us at 71. My understanding of the Guinness Book of World Records is 53 songs recorded and released in 1 year. Well, we just blew that out of the water.
Oh yeah. And recently you've just done 7 new films. Is that correct?
We did what? What's that? 7.
You've done 7 new films.
Yes, Alicia and I've done 7 films here. And you can, if you want to see what's going on here, all you have to do is download the app. It's free. It's a John Schneider app. It'll take you to all the music. It'll take you to the movies. It'll take you to the schedule, because we've been doing a very rather extensive concert schedule. So I might be coming to your town, whether it's in Mayberry. I have played up in Anchorage, Alaska in the last 6 months. So
I know.
I could be there.
Yeah.
So just download the John Schneider app, and it'll take you to all the movies, all the music, and the whole schedule. You can even buy a T-shirt or a hat if you want.
Yep. Absolutely. It's at johnschneiderstudio.com, and I know you've also got Bo's Christmas Bazaar coming up as well.
We do. We're doing a Christmas concert here on December 1st, and we're in Holden, Louisiana, which is about 35 miles from Baton Rouge. 50 miles from New Orleans, and we have a great time. We have friends of mine and friends of Alicia's who are up on stage. We do music and cut up. We do a thing kind of like hee haw from the old days called yeehaw, and it's a great time.
Awesome,
great time. You can do that in person, and we'll be here. So if you're within 100 miles, come on out on December 1st and enjoy yourself.
That's great.
Hey,
That's
guys,
great.
and Mr. Schneider, I just have one favor.
Sure.
I need you to say "rev it up."
Rev it up. Rev it
That's
up.
what I'm talking about.
All right. So definitely want to thank you, John, so much for coming on and taking your time. I know we went over your time, but thank you so much. And
that's okay. This has been wonderful. I've appreciated it. And keep doing what you're doing. If my circumstance can help the fight or help educate or at least formulate some good questions in other people's minds, then keep me in the loop.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. You take care.
All right,
bye.
Love you guys.
Thanks.
Love you guys.
All right. So great stuff. Mr. John Schneider there. We're going to have a whole lot of other things in the works behind the scenes. We're already in contact with several other people who may be coming on very, very shortly. I know Randy was taken off there, but we're going to leave you tonight with just a little clip real quick. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you.